Let's see, let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 2022 East Coast Black Age of Comics Convention, Our Images Panel. My name is Eric Nixon, Assistant Program Manager at Word Radio here in Philadelphia and co-founder of Fukuname, and I am your moderator for this ECBACC panel, ECBACC 20. This will be unpacking ECBACC's 20-year impact on the comic book industry and being ECBACC's 21st anniversary. Happy anniversary, by the way, which now means ECBACC is officially an adult and old enough to drink. And we'll dive into those 20 years that have passed and reflect on its accolades. With me today is a star-studded panel to reflect on this time and just talk about the reflections of Black art in our society. So right now we're going to go with the way I have visuals. Kaloni Davis, good friend of mine, director and cinematographer known for his film The Visit in 2010, Last Days, The Saga Torment in 2013, and The Evaluation in 2021. Davis is also most well known for writing Last Days, The Saga, an old-fashioned crime noir detective story. Stylized comic follows Detective Young, who is trying to identify his father's murderer, but his obsession with the case leads him down a dark, confusing path. Kaloni, how's it going?
I'm good, man. That was an awesome introduction. You make me sound like important, and I'm definitely just a dude trying to make art. But yeah, I'm glad to be here. I'm honored to be on this panel. Let's talk about whatever we want to talk about. I'm excited.
And you are very important, brother. Very important. Next up, we have the lady of the hour, Ariell Johnson, owner and proprietor of Amalgam Comics and Coffee House, a comic book store and coffee shop hybrid. And well, we'll talk about the location. I say it's in between spaces where you can find Jonathan Majors and a little teaser there for the whole Loki scenario. The idea for Amalgam was born in 2003 when Johnson was still an accounting student at Temple, and overall has developed to being one of the beacons of the community as far as comic books and in such situations like that. It stands as a pillar in the comic books speculative fiction pop culture space. Ariell, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm really happy to be here.
Good. Next, we have my brother, Shawn Alleyne, freelance illustrator, writer, and instructor.
Alleyne.
Alleyne? How I never said that right before? You've never corrected me.
No pressure.
Wow. Wow. Shawn Alleyne. Excuse me. Edit that out. Shawn Alleyne, born and raised in Ireland, Barbados, now residing in Philadelphia. His gritty, self-taught style fuses the element of sci-fi mythology and comic book art with his Caribbean roots and love of hip-hop to manifest his work. The founder of many art groups, including Artmada, Street Team Studios, the Zion Network, and Open Mic Art Exhibiting Drawing Group Series. Shawn, what's going on, brother?
I am here. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Alleyne is a Barbadian name. So if you ever meet another Alleyne, they're probably from Barbados. And happy anniversary to ECBACC.
Thank you.
I learned two things today. That again, that Amalgam can drink officially, and that Alleyne is a thing. So I've learned. I feel like I'm expanding my palette now, and I do appreciate that. Thank you for coming, Shawn. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
All right, now we have Professor William Foster. Let me find your bio here if I can scroll down long enough that it's a whole page, and let's see if I can summarize it with enough time. Cool. So let me see. I think I got it down to a focused line. Longtime fan of both comic books and science fiction, creator of a traveling educational exhibit on the changing image of Blacks in comics. He's written 2 books on the topic, Looking for a Face Like Mine in 2005 and Dreaming of a Face Like Ours in 2010. To purchase comics, you go to Amazon.com and find more about him, about his research. Visit the website finalyinfullcolor.com. Am I getting that right, Professor?
Dead on, my brother.
How you doing today?
The Lord is blessing me and I ain't mad at nobody.
Amen. That's all that matters. All right, let's see. Now we have brother Maurice Waters, president and founder of blacksci-fi.com, blacksci-fi-fi.com. Get it right. A website that focuses on sci-fi, sci-fact, fantasy, entertainment, news, people, places, events, and the impact of those events on the African-American community. Waters started his career in Philadelphia media market as a reporter, producer, and programming assistant. Starting in the 90s, he has produced and hosted numerous Black sci-fi panels and workshops along the East Coast that focuses on Black sci-fi enthusiasts and those who are trying to break into the sci-fi industry. He's worked with Temple's PASEP program, Art Sanctuary Celebration of Black Writing, and the Big Apple Comic-Con. For 6 years, he was the vice president and event coordinator for ECBACC. What's going on, Brother Waters?
Hey, what's up? I'm feeling old after that, man.
Gotta get you, spread your waters how we do.
Right.
How we do.
Yeah, thanks for having me here, man.
And we have Brother Ariell Johnson, who's also associated with ECBACC. What's going on, brother?
Baba Keel can't hear you. Well, Baba Keel is actually our backup for me here today.
Gotcha.
So he just was able to get back on. So he'll be assisting me in case I need it. But Baba Keel is the chair of the Freitor Hebrew Institute. He's also a longtime ECBACC supporter. And I see he's having issues with the audio. But we can continue. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Thank you all for joining today. And we had a very spirited conversation in the beginning before we started the recording.
Hey, hold on.
Oh, okay.
You forgot someone very important.
Who?
The guy with the mask. The guy with the mask.
Oh, yeah. You mean the reason that we're all here?
Right.
Finally, that would be Yumy Odom, founder and president of the East Coast Black Age of Comics Convention, the nation's first full-service Black comic book convention. Yumy is an award-winning educator, author, nonprofit leader, community ambassador, and blog talk radio show host with over 35 years of professional experience. He's also the curator of a unique exhibit entitled The Heroic Age, 10,000 Years of Gods, Goddesses, Heroes, Amazons, Witches, Wizards, and Warriors, inspired by over 30 years of research. Brother Yumy, how you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. And thank all of you for joining us.
I got ahead of myself because, again, I went over 2 pages and jumped your bio, and I'm like, wow, it went all the way up. Excuse me. So let's get started in the conversation. The points I wanted to make in beginning this is starting with the roots of ECBACC. Yumy, I know we can be here all day, so I got to ask you to summarize and do your best. What are the roots of ECBACC, reflecting on these 20 years?
Right, and this is actually a 36-year journey, but let's just start where I connected with people like Professor Foster, Mashindo Kumba, and of course, Turtle Only in Chicago. I was doing my master's thesis in 1990, and I was reaching out to people who were doing Black indie comics, and there were just a handful. Most of them were in Philadelphia or came from Philadelphia. So of course you had here Reggie Byers, you had here Dawood Anyabwile and his family, the Sims brothers. You had the rudiments of Brother Akinshe before he started Sequoia Comics and Productions, Aaron Beatty, a whole host of people who were here. So I reached out, talked to them. This is before email. I was letter writing people, literally. And I was calling on the telephone to talk to people. And so I ended up doing the first master's thesis on Black indie comics. And in the interim, Professor Foster and I talked about doing a conference. I was thinking more academic, like just having a comic book conference as opposed to a convention. But as we got into 10 years later, in the 2000s, it turned into a convention. And we had our first convention in 2002.
I appreciate all the work that you've put in. You said 36 years of work.
This started with me back in 1986 with First World Comics. I introduced the first comics in the classroom workshop in Brooklyn when I was at Hunter College. And then I came to Philadelphia in 88. And so all of that ended up turning into this idea of having a conference, a symposium, and then of course the convention.
And I don't thank you for that. Thank you for bringing it to this area. You didn't have to. What made you want to bring it to Philly from New York?
Well, I came here to go to school.
Okay.
I came here for grad school. So since I was here, everything ended up having the focal point here in Philadelphia.
And in talking about the influence of ECBACC on the area, and anyone can chime in on their start in this industry of Black sci-fi, comics, illustration, story writing. What brought you into story writing, and where you came into ECBACC's orbit, and to then surround yourself with people like you? And I'll go in order of visual. So we'll go with Kaloni first. In your inspiration for writing and creating, and your first interactions with ECBACC.
So if we start from the timeline of like when I got involved with ECBACC, so you mentioned when you introduced me that I was a filmmaker, and so I had already been writing since high school. I went to Creative and Performing Arts High School where I studied theater, but I also had a video production class that was a part of that. And in that video production class, we studied filmmaking and writing as a default. And so I had been writing since high school. Once I went to college, learned a little bit more about filmmaking, and I got out, I started exploring and making my own films, and which led me to Last Days. Last Days is not initially a comic book. It was a web series. It was an action, sci-fi, crime noir web series. And it involved a lot of action and martial arts. I teamed up with a stunt team in a martial arts school, and we went to town on it. So I did about 6 episodes, and of the people who were like following it, which surprisingly was more than I thought, when I stopped, people were like, when's the next episode? Give us more, give us more. And by then I was like, I had been doing it for a couple of years, and I was burnt. And I was like, I'm tired. I was like, but there is more to the story that I want to tell, but it can't be this way. And so I was like, you know what? I want to turn this into a book so people can read it, and I could expand the story, expand the fantasy a little bit more, because I can do things in a book that I can't do on film with the budget that I was working with. So I took my writing and I was like, let me turn it into a comic book. And so I was initially working with I was initially working with another artist. He got booked and couldn't do it anymore. But before he walked away, he introduced me to Akinse. And me and Akinse have been like, we meshed. Like, he understood the story. The story and the style I was telling so well. I really didn't have to do much explaining to him for him to match it with visuals. So, he told me about this ECBACC thing he was a part of, and I was like, man, this is dope. I love this, supporting the Black storytellers. And I was like, anytime you need my help or me in general for anything, let me know. So I've been helping the ECBACC out wherever I can ever since.
Ryan,
I need to make a quick comment on that. Thank you, brother.
Sure, no, sure. Go ahead.
About Brother Akinse, one of the most deserving people in this industry. And when you commented on how he kind of grasped what you were saying, that's how he became an artist for me. There were only 2 people up until Brother Shawn Alleyne, this is from 10, 15 years ago, who could draw what I saw in my head. And he was one of them, Akinse Brown.
I don't know how he does it. Like, he read the first draft of my book, and the first initial concepts he sent me back were so perfect. I was like, are you in my head? I was like, how do you see it exactly the way that I visualize it? And I was just like, he was like, well, it's just the way you wrote it. And I was like, yeah, but this is too close. I was like, this is crazy. And so, like, it's been an honor to work with him, man.
He has
a lot of that comes from, we have a similar background in terms of African aesthetics. Mm-hmm. So I don't draw at all. My father was an artist. I'm not an artist. I do the writing and the thinking, right? So I put together maybe an index card with 5 or 6 comments on it, and what I would get back is what I would have had in my head.
Yep, that's exactly how he works. I was like, he has a gift, man.
So
For some people, they will make comment that your intuition on D&D stats have been turned up to 11. Ariell, same question as far as we know the story of Amalgam coming together and just in briefly summarizing that and talking about when Amalgam and ECBACC began to cross paths and just your memory of coming into knowledge of ECBACC and the partnership. You're muted, sister.
Sorry about that.
It's all good.
Almost like I haven't been doing Zoom meetings for 2 years.
We all have, and we still do it. Okay. You know.
But so as far as my, I guess, introduction to ECBACC, that actually happened before Amalgam.
Okay.
Just kind of in preparation. I'm a planner. So I was working at a coffee shop. I was doing a whole bunch of stuff to kind of prepare myself for Amalgam. And one of those was getting more connected into the comic book community here in Philadelphia, and especially the Black comic book community. So it all started with a Google search, came across ECBACC, made note of when the next convention was happening and reached out and volunteered. So that's how my first time at ECBACC, I was a volunteer and helping. I was helping with one of the kids programs that was happening in one of the satellite rooms. And that was really it. I wanted to kind of meet folks and, again, just really be kind of immerse myself in the comic book world, meet the creators, the artists, the writers, all of the folks that are telling these stories, all of these creators that, I wanted to be able to support and create a space for within Amalgam. Like that was the whole point. And so really that was it. It was like my journey with ECBACC kind of started actually before Amalgam, but it was in preparation for Amalgam. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense. It was the story when you think that places are not necessarily, what's the word, associated, because it's definitely two different projects, like Amalgam and ECBACC standing as pillars in the community, but they come to find out it's one of those stories like actually they're the reason that I even am who I am in this pillar in the community, and that's great in a way of how none of us are ever just like meeting somebody for the first time. You've had some type of interaction with somebody through 6 degrees of separation and coming together again and having these conversations now is what it's all about. Brother Shawn, from your first time paper hitting the pen to association with ECBACC, and I heard Brother Yumy say you're one of the only other people who can take pen to paper of someone's imagination of their story to tell, and your D&D points, I believe, are also up to 11. You spent those points and you bought the books that you needed to turn the intuition up to 11. But tell your story.
And when Brother Yumy said that, instantly somebody started cutting onions somewhere. I got a little misty idea.
You all right? You okay? You need tissue there?
Okay.
You okay?
Sinuses or whatever is going on. But thank you, Brother Yumy, for that. I feel that I'm blessed. I'm fortunate to have met the people at ECBACC and for this to be a part of my life. My first encounter with everything ECBACC was 2006, and I was working at a cafe. I'm
noticing cafes are a constant thing here.
Yeah. It was a spot called Picnic. It's like a high-end cafe type of thing, and I had a co-worker, a good friend of mine by the name of Alex Smith, who happens to also be a comic book writer. And at the time, we were, just working, talking about our dreams of one day working in comic books. And, one day he came in and he handed me a flyer. And he was like, hey, have you heard about this Black comic book convention in Philly? And immediately my world changed. I was like, what? A Black comic book convention in Philly? And I looked at the flyer and it said it was the 5th year anniversary. And I was doubly stunned because I was like, wait a second, I've been here since '93. I've never heard about this convention. instantly called the number on there. And I believe the person I spoke to was Maurice. And I spoke to Maurice, and basically I told him like, hey, you don't know me, but I want to work for y'all. Because I always felt that if you come across something, you should share that thing. If you feel that this is something good, you shouldn't keep it to yourself. You know what I mean? And I felt like, yo, this is something that I want. I've been looking for. Other people need to hear about this. And maybe the word isn't getting put out there enough. So I want to help spread the word. So Maurice brought me into the group. He brought me in to meet Yumy. And I remember I was late for the meeting. And Mr. Yumy let me know it's all about punctuality. You know, so once again, I apologize, sir. I know it's been years later. I'm so sorry. He was like, he said, and he's very blunt. And he said straight up, listen, you're late. I had to leave. And Maurice was like, hey, we'll try again. And luckily, luckily, he gave me another chance to meet him. They saw my work. They brought me. Basically, I feel like they took me under their wing. And I had such an educational development, being able to see how a convention is run, how people conduct themselves as business people, as human beings. And then on top of that, that's the first time I got to meet Akanshie and attend my first ever ECBACC convention and meet all these other talented, incredibly professional, amazing Nubian artists. And the one thing, and this is with no hyperbole, I am the artist I am today because of ECBACC, because of one thing that they did. They said, hey, Shawn, your art is nice, but where are the Black people? And I said, the what? Because at the time, I was drawing white Asian characters because that's what I was seeing. That's all that, that was the majority of what I was seeing. And growing up in Barbados, even though we're surrounded by Nubian people and white people are a minority, it is a culture of consumption. There's nobody that I know of on the island putting out comic books that reflected what they were seeing in the mirror. So I was drawing what was brought in, I was seeing on TV and comic books, which were white people. And then with anime, Asian characters or Asian-esque, because that's a whole nother conversation about anime. Anyway, the creators that attended ECBACC were making it their mission to create characters that reflected African heritage, Black culture, and they openly challenged me. They didn't just say, oh, Shawn, sure, whatever you want to do. They have a directive, they had a mission, and they openly challenged me and say, yo, Shawn, where are the Black people? I remember going home instantly changing all my characters. I was like, nope, this person's from Africa, this person's from here, this person's Black. It was a reawakening for me. And I'm so grateful for that experience. And from there, I started working with them, helping do some networking and trying to get the word out. And yeah, it's been an amazing set of years ever since. So thank you once again, Maurice and Yumy. I can't say it enough.
Hey man, that's tears for real, man. It's like, a hero origin story, man. I love it. I love it. Professor Foster.
My brother.
One of the pillars of ECBACC you are, and even see here that you are currently creating the first encyclopedia of Black comic books. Talk about
Thank you for reminding me of that, because my back had stopped hurting for a little bit, but no, I'm kidding. That's
carrying it, man. You carrying it, brother. You carrying it well. Talk about how your involvement in from your perspective in building the convention or starting the foundation of this convention and building it up.
It's one of my favorite stories. One of my favorite stories.
Let me go get my coffee and my mug and my blanket.
Good chair. That's it. That B-Shop's fight. We were at Wizard Magazine was sponsoring comic book shows around the country. Philadelphia was one of the places they sponsored. Some people were attending, and per usual for the chance. This is not on the negative, it's just what it was, is that they had the one Black panel with Black people on it, which in no way reflected all of us, or a lot of us. You know, the people who have been in the industry for a while, they knew somebody, We didn't come after them because that would have been wrong. We always attended their, their sessions because that was the support. But we were standing around saying, we can do better than this, can't we? That all of us got talent. There's got to be some kind of way to showcase it as well. And Brother Yumy said, well, I had some connections at Temple. We could be there tomorrow. And every one of us looked at each other and said, makes sense to me. And the reflection of the people who were there that first day, the range of talent, of age, of background was amazing. We had a young 17-year-old brother, was his first comic book, and he wanted to be there. We had a gentleman who had been working in commercial art for how many years? 20 years. He was there with his son. And we had a brother from Canada come down and was videotaping. It was amazing. And that was like, from that kind of like real small grassroots, it just went everywhere. People was like, well, when they gonna have the next one? What's going on? How can I, and the kids that showed up and the families that showed up and the organizations that provided support. Thank you, Brother Yumy, for your community support, because that made a big difference. I'm still remembering those early ones we did where the sisters made all kinds of Caribbean food I had never tasted in my life, and I can still taste it. It was that damn good. And they were dressed in, in traditional outfits. I mean, it was just like, it just grabbed me by my heart. And I was back in my hometown where I grew up and my love of comics was flourished. I started reading comics when I was like 12 years old. And I would, for those of you who know West Philly, in front of the Leaders Theater on Lancaster Avenue, there was a comic book stand right in front of it. And that was my two passions in life back then. Going to the matinee with my buddies and buying comic books at the stand before I went in. And I never forgot it. And I was just collecting them and reading stories. But there was one thing that always kind of was on the bottom of my nerve. I love Superman, I love Batman because they fought for justice. But you never saw anybody look like us. The only time you saw somebody of color, if they weren't Asian, was Africans. And then they were ambassadors in New York City, or they were being embarrassed by the image that white people had of us from Africa, even to like the 70s. Even till now. I see people who don't have a sense of us and who we are. I had to explain to my students in my classrooms many times, Africa is a continent. It is not one country. If you see light people on the hieroglyphics of Egypt, what do you think that is? They ran out of paint? Come on, y'all. Get with it. It was a mission I had, and I took it as far as I possibly could. And I was very fortunate. I started going to academic conferences speaking about Blacks in comics. I always got a seat, and I always was, talking about it in a way some people had never heard it before. So that was a route for me to take our message for ECBACC around the world. I went to England, Sweden, Germany, China, Costa Rica, talking about our image and how we can improve on it, where we started from and where we're going. It never ends. It's a line that continues. And it's always been my pride to do so. But ECBACC was just kind of special because we would get together. We had to stop laughing for the first 10 minutes because we were so thrilled to see each other. And Philadelphia, as the place that, that published the first Black comic book in 1947, when Brother Yumy and I were talking about it, we said, dude, what more logical place you can do this? They can go someplace after here, but we have to make a statement too. And then we had the brothers who did, so many different comic books in Philadelphia. I was like, yikes. It just made me, because I had left Philadelphia in high school, but I came back for ECBACC. And my family was here. So I had an automatic roots every time I came back home. And now, even so, it's like ECBACC follows me as well. And I take the story of ECBACC wherever I go. Oh, by the way, everybody here who agreed to be recorded, there's a comic book conference coming up here in Connecticut, putting your names down to be invited.
Oh, wow.
They are serious. Hey, they are most serious. So the sister who I've linked up with here is a longtime community organizer, a teacher. And she said, and she created a conference this year called DiasporaCon.
Right.
And she said, oh, please bring some of your folks. I said, you got to be kidding. That's my family too. And grab y'all up by the neck, just take you with me. But the idea is that we're seeing people. I said, if you know anything about this, one story, because I don't want to get too far off. I used to do diversity training. And at one point for 2.5 years, we taught every elementary school teacher in New Haven, Connecticut. One person came up to me, it was a brother. He said, man, I understand you read comics. And we got off into a corner, we started chatting, we were smiling. People thought we was like, oh, y'all cousins or something? I said, reckon we are. And he said something that day. He said, this was a while back. He said, man, I'm going to have my own comic book. I said, brother, I believe you 100%. He now has not only his own comic book, but like some people only put out one issue. He's put out 7. And he has that flair for the old stories. For those who remember when superheroes back in the 60s and 70s, you could never have Superman and Batman in the same comic the first time, unless they had a fight and they learned how to respect each other. And that Marvel way where Hulk had to be versus the Thing. He kept that same old spirit, but he put faces of people like us in it. I'm thrilled that that he kept his dream alive. And he was a teacher as well. Then I think he's getting ready to leave that. It'll be a benefit to Black comic industry if he does, have more time for what he's doing. But he is a tremendous artist. And that's one story of many. When I write, I'm sorry, I just have to have a copy of this one.
For those of you watching or listening, it's holding up a copy.
I keep on my shelf. I'm not messing around. But the idea is I'm working on the 3rd one of this called Finally in Full Color, because I keep doing essays. I keep asking people, could I do essays for the people who publish about comics? Our story is never going to be told. We understand the excitement about the Black Panther, and I'm totally excited about that, and where we go from here. But I saw something interesting. The first Black Panther movie, I was asked to be a commentator. I started talking in my church, and then we went across the street to the movie theater, and I'm watching the audience. And this is what probably, for us, it's a moment of unity. But for other people, it's like they don't get it, but they have to get it, because I'm watching the audience. I'm not watching the screen. I've seen it several times. I've seen it again, and I'll see it one more time because I like it. But the idea is I'm watching the audience, and for the first time, everybody here knows those old jokes about Black people talking during the movie theater. Everybody was doing the exact same thing in the theater. They laughed at the same time. They were hushed silent at the same time. They cheered at the same time. Mixed audience. For some people, that's a frightening thing, that we have a final thing that unites us as people because we see the things that touch our hearts. Get scared, because that's how it goes. Because I was doing talks all over Connecticut. Women came dressed as great warriors from Wakanda. Little girls came dressed like great warriors from Wakanda. And people were cheering them, and they were happy to see them, and they were thrilled, and it was connecting us in a way that I can't even describe, but y'all feel me? And that's just, I said, this is why we do what we do. This is why we said we needed our own convention, because being a part of somebody else's convention will never get the priority we deserve. Now we do. And people who are the awards that we've given out, and that's to good work, people who show us. So, because I've had somebody ask me, do you have to be Black to go? I said, no, because I don't have the right to go to your show. What the heck? But I understand their confusion, because people make you think that we're so separate, what they're going to do when you get there. No, that's not going to ever happen. We've never had a problem with anybody coming to our show. Okay? So they have to get over that. The lie cannot live in the face of the truth. And what you're seeing on the screen now is the face of the truth. That's all we're telling. We're touching everybody. Brother Waters and I have been working on Black science fiction in the past, and that just touches me as well, because he has never given up on that dream. And it is hard out here unless you have a powerful money machine not behind you, but you have a lot of heart and you have cooperation. I'm gonna ask one of you brothers who speak the language of cooperation, because there's an African term for that, is there not? Umoja?
Mm-hmm.
It is for real. And I always got a fresh feeling, because ECBACC always came at the end of my semester and I was worn out. And I would come to Philadelphia, and for like 3 days, I'd be lost in the love and the fellowship and the art and the words and the ideas of ECBACC. Helped me come back to myself. And I would leave from that and go back, because I'd have 10 weeks to work on something before the next semester started. And I would get right to work on my next writing project, because I had been inspired by my family. I hope that answers your question, my brother.
ECBACC recharges your batteries and inspires who you are. And I definitely appreciate that testimony.
Can I add something really quick to that? I want
Sure.
to piggyback off of what Dr. Foster said. That's so important. ECBACC, to me, the beauty of it is different from any other convention, in that a lot of times, this is a business. We love doing what we do, but for artists, writers, we go as a way to supplement funds and make money. ECBACC feels like a family reunion. There's a different kind of vibe there. Yes, it is a way for artists to make money, for creators to make money. But aside from that, I feel that people could come there, and even if they weren't to make a single dollar, there's no person there looking miserable. Everybody is supporting the other person. I feel like the thing is that even if there's always Pat, that's the thing. But even if there was a case, some rarity that nobody would show up, people would still make money because everybody else is buying for everybody. So it's just a whole different experience. And I just wanted to say that.
Absolutely.
And to see the young kids that come to the show and having the experience that we never had at their age, seeing vibrant, alive, powerful, justice-seeking Black characters, men, women, and children on the page. That is the ultimate thrill. Okay, I'm done, my brother. Please, I love to hear someone talk. I'm just excited. I always get excited by ECBACC. They were messing with me one year. They said, Foster, every time you come up and speak, it's like I hear the theme song to Roots in the background. Just cutting on me. As only my family would do. That's all right.
Hey, loving the gushing of just expression here. That's what it's all about. Yumy, you can agree that when we get to a place like this, to be able to gush about your favorite thing, to be in the room with your family and just you're home and you're talking about your love for it, and that's definitely the foundations. I mean, Yumy and Professor Foster, just that's what it's about. It's what you guys, what you're doing right now, Professor, and what Yumy was talking about in the beginning. Just is what this is about. That's what it's about. Right.
So I always say that ECBACC is fulfilling its mission, and the main one was really to put Black indie characters and their creators, whether they're African descent or not, in the forefront. It's really about the characters. And people always ask about the when you go to other conventions, they have a Black corner. What's that thing called? The Artist Alley.
Artist Alley, yeah.
And they would always call me and ask, "Is there a Black Artist Alley at ECBACC?" It's like, what? No, the whole convention is for the artist. We don't have alleyways at ECBACC. Everybody's in the spotlight at ECBACC, literally.
Yeah.
Well, only time we had to separate people was when we're next door at Tech Freire, and we had the front room where we had the Africas, and then the larger space, because everybody couldn't fit in there. And so we had people coming to us, well, why is this person in the front room? Well, we always do that. It depends on who pays first. If you're the first to pay, you get the first spot. We don't go around trying to put someone in the back and the front. It's based on our treasurer, Stephanie Branford. When you pay, she puts you in the first spot. That's how simple that was.
Yeah. It's not favoritism.
Mm-hmm. Right. No favoritism, no nepotism. It's for the treasurer. It's about who paid first. That's all that is. And then the other side of that is everybody we've awarded, PLAs, HCCAs, the GCAs, we always say when nobody was thinking of you, we were. All of those people have now been awarded by the Eurostream and by other people. They deserve it, but they were all noticed first by ECBACC. And I mean literally everybody. Even now, there are about 3 new quote unquote Black awards that other people have created, still with ECBACC folks involved in it.
Influence is wide. Last but certainly not least, Brother Maurice.
I'm getting a little emotional, honestly. My father used to always say you got to know when to speak and when to listen.
Mm-hmm.
And for a little while, I kind of took a step back from what I was doing to take care of some personal business, and this is kind of my first step back in. And to hear what everybody here is saying, that was exactly the intent. 20 years ago, sitting down and talking with Yumy about what ECBACC is and what it can be. My background is, of course, as a kid, a comic book collector.
Mm-hmm.
And reading sci-fi books and things like that. I went on and started to try to do my own films. I did a comic book, me and a buddy named Thomas Cooper, and we drew it on loose leaf paper and we tried to sell it to everybody in the neighborhood. We just jammed it down their throat, like, buy our book. And my father saw that I really was taking it seriously. And I don't know how he knew, but there was a convention, a sci-fi convention called the Creation Convention that would go on in Philadelphia, and it focused on Doctor Who and Star Wars and Star Trek. And we're talking about the really early 80s. So he took me to that convention, and here's this little black kid around all these white people, you know, dressed like Doctor Who and all this stuff. And I was in love. I knew that was what I wanted. This is where I wanted to be. And so from that point on, I just was going to every convention, any type that I was, you know, as I grew up. As I grew up in that convention scene, there also was a hunger, because a lot of times I was the only black kid there, or there may be just a few. And there are perspectives that I saw that other people didn't see. One of the things that I bring up a lot was that at this particular Star Trek convention, which I won't name, they used to play a bloopers reel. And on that bloopers reel, if you look at the original Star Trek, at the ending credits, one of the credits on there is Gene L. Kuhn. And what they would do on the bloopers reels at the end, show this guy's name, Gene L. Kuhn, and then show a black guy mopping up the holodeck on Star Trek. And everybody got laughed out of that. I didn't. You know, I'm this, you know, 12-year-old kid, and I was seething about it, and it always stuck with me. But I still went to these conventions, I still did things, but it was always this hunger. And you know, this was a different time. You know, right now with Black Panther, it's cool to talk about comic books. It's cool to, you know, get Disney Plus and all these other things and walk around doing these things. Back then it wasn't. You know, you were picked on. There was no blurred, it was just nerd. And that means you had a target on your back. And so going to conventions, I just kept attending. It was my love, was my passion. And like Professor Foster said, I was at that Wizard convention in Philadelphia. And if anybody knows the difference between what ECBACC does and what some of these mainstream conventions do, the mainstream conventions do this Artist Alley. And Artist Alley is really made for the independents, you know, because you're getting your money from the big houses being here, the DCs, the Image, the Marvels. They take up the lion's share of everything, the artists, they're the razzle dazzle. Then you have these rows of corners in the back where it's the independent artists, and more than likely that's where you're going to find most Black artists. So I knew that, and I would always go there first. That's what I really look forward to, and meeting people. And so this particular Wizard convention in Philadelphia, I started an organization called Black Science Fiction Society, and I was doing blacksci-fi.com. The Black Science Fiction Society the goal was to bring people together to talk about what was going on and encourage it. And so we were already having panels and things around the city, and we were also online. So I was going there to meet some of the people there, and I was talking to one of the comic book artists that was there, and he said, "Hey, there's supposed to be this gathering of black comic book artists in Philly." I said, "When?" He said, "It's supposed to be going on right now." I said, "Where?" He said, "On Temple campus." So I immediately left, and I went down to Temple University. I was a Temple student at the time too. And so I made a beeline down there, and I spent the rest of the afternoon trying to find what building and where it was. And by the time I found it, it was in Ritter Hall. By the time I found it, it was over. And so I said, there's no way in the world that something like this is ever going to happen again without me being involved. So I started talking to the maintenance people, like, who did this? And what, you know, and they brought up Yumy's name. And ironically, I knew Yumy by face. I didn't know Yumy. Like, I've seen them around the campus walking back and forth and doing things with Passat, but I didn't know him personally. So when I finally found him, I called him up, made an appointment, went to his office, told him who I was. Look, hey, look, I have a communications background. I do film, comic books, Please let me be involved in this. You know, I said, listen, I understand that it's a network, but when all those guys are gathered like that right there are other people that want to know about this, that want to buy their products, that want to understand this. And so that's where, you know, that's where it kind of changed a little bit to the convention form. And so those very first ones, it was only a few people there. And a lot of times we joke about it, but it's true that the guests, the people that attended actually were the panelists as well. So we would do one panel, we'd sit in the audience on one and then get on the panel and the stage on the other. And we're just talking about issues and things like that and sharing information. And it got bigger and bigger. And the goal was to put us and our work front and center, no filter. okay, and really put out there, because these guys that attended, like Professor Foster and Reggie Byers and Dawood, they were already superstars in the 80s, but everybody was kind of in their own world doing their own thing. And this was the opportunity for everybody to converge in one place. And I was like, there's no way with this going on, it has to be showcased. And of course, people want to know, you know, that I knew that there were other people who wanted to learn how to do comic books but didn't know how, or people that drew but needed that feedback. Because a lot of times when you go to the mainstream conventions, you maybe have 5 minutes, 15 minutes, or you're paying people to look at your portfolio. And sometimes they're not telling you the truth. Sometimes they're giving you this negative stuff to discourage you. So here was an area where it was being nurtured. And, you know, of course, Yumy talked about bringing in the African-centered perspective in this, making it a village, making it welcoming, making it a place where you had, you know, African food, Jamaican food, Caribbean food. You know, we had dancers there, everything and anything that you can imagine, and people were encouraged to stay. At the mainstream conventions, it's more like pay for whatever it is, get your autograph, keep it moving, buy books, right? It's only recently with the advent of cosplay blowing up that people are more socializing and hanging around. But ECBACC was all, people wouldn't leave. People would be there all day, all night, and then we'd do things in the evening still to socialize. And like there was this range from the little kid to the adult, to having someone like Samuel Joyner, who in his lifetime was never recognized for taking the challenges of showing us in a way, to the young people who were like, how can I just do this? Or even Shawn, and the things that he said are true. So, you know, that's how I got involved. I don't want to get too far into it, but in a nutshell.
I would have been livid like you to know about that on campus and trying to find it all day. That's the worst feeling in the world.
Yes, it was.
Trying to find something that speaks to you as a person and getting to a place where it was and it's over. I feel that 100%. To dive into it, just to talk about even myself a little bit, to add to the 20 years of ECBACC, believe it was 2015, I think, is when I got into it. Now I had been in the blurred space, hearing about different podcasts doing different things all the way back to like the Black Tribble. Shout out to them and my exposure to them. And the show that I was producing at Word at the time, The Lounge with Keaton Nichols, we were starting to do things and adding a millennial voice to the station. And we wanted to have a blurred segment because he's a Batman fan. I'm overall anime, comic books, sci-fi fan. Like my dad was a Trekkie. I'm a Star Wars kid, you know, but I have respect for Trekkies. I'm not a Trekkie, but I have respect for the Trek storyline. And he challenged me to Keaton challenged me when we were building a segment for Blurs. I had a few people on and we booked a few people, but we needed to have more of a presence. And we found out about ECBACC. I said, ECBACC, what's that? So I went down to when it was on Broad. I believe it was the school, the charter school that was there. I believe it was like the first time I had gone. And it's very rare that you find when you go to a convention that the owner is up front at the desk greeting people and being friendly with people. And I went up and Yumy wasn't like, I'm the founder, don't look at me, I'm the founder, I'm busy. He made time. And me and trying to grasp my space in this blurred reporter, blurred content creator, still finding my voice in things, and I wanted to do. I didn't figure it out yet. I'm more on it now, of wanting to have podcasts and conversations with things that are going on and bring light to the stories that are going on now, in comparison conversations to what's important. I like to make a overall comparison, like, yeah, this story is great right now, is what's going on, but where's this story right now in the grand scheme of things? What are they learning from this, and where can we expound on that a little more? I've met a lot of different people that were in that space, like Regine Sawyer, Charles Bosick, Joseph Illich. Like the people that I met there, I walked away with cards and connections of people that are just down to earth like me, creatives like me. Kaloni, I don't think we met at ECBACC. I don't remember where we met first, but I think that might have been one place. I definitely met Shawn at ECBACC or another convention. But it's just the places that that bring everybody together. And for me, I definitely owe everything. And every ECBACC that I go to, I make sure before I leave to take a picture with Yumy. I think one time I didn't, and I think I was on the run, but every time I make sure that I take a picture with Yumy before I go. And I think I did that this last time when it resurfaced to everybody in 2022. So I want to thank Brother Yumy for allowing me to moderate this panel, and just in attendance and learning and seeing the conventions, the artists, the people, and just the way that it is arranged is definitely different. I'll also make a quick comparison to the cons that I will go to. Like I went to, I think, Fan Expo this year, and it's a very good point that upstairs is the vendors, and then the big stage, and then the artists. I think, I don't remember exactly where they were, but it's one of those things where you have to look at a map to find out where those people are. If you look at ECBACC's map, most of the time it's around the artists. So like the artists are all over the place. Like it's like you go to every corner and there's somebody there to share their work. It's not like anybody is segmented off anywhere, right? And I definitely appreciate that foundation of ECBACC. So thank you everybody for your stories in celebrating ECBACC and everything. Yumy, any last words on it before we move on to a particular topic?
Yes. It's about 7 after 2. At 17 after, that'll make 1 hour. I want to make sure we get to some of the questions that people did have. And Maurice wanted to also share something. So we can follow up. I think you have something already outlined.
Yes, I did want to touch on two things. And I also will ask if you want to talk about, just touch on amalgam if you would want to, like yes or no is perfectly fine, on like the status and its plans for the near future or anything like that. It could be completely,
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that's still, to be determined, TBD.
Mhm.
But yeah, I can share, I know there were specific questions, and so I'm happy to, address those questions as best as I can at this time.
Okay.
That's not a problem.
The topic I wanted to bring up is I like to try to bring thought-provoking conversations to artists like you all, creatives like you all, and that's even though it's not new, but the hyper focus of violence in Philly. And I believe that creativity, art, having some type of outlet is one of many ways to quell this issue. And anyone can go first. But where do we start in trying to bring this art or bring the creativity of people to channel their angst and whatever they got going on? Because a lot of things is poverty, there's issues in home, which is caused by the poverty of people, and the job resurgence. There's so many things that are layered into what's causing everything going on. But I believe that part of it is being able to channel that frustration into some line of creativity. Not everybody can draw. Not everybody can totally write a story. Maybe you can draw, but you can't tell a story. Maybe you can even just talk about these stories from a perspective like I am. Like I could do a little bit of the things, but I like to talk about it from an overall standpoint. Where do you guys see the world of creativity's lens or lending help in quelling this issue of violence going on in Philadelphia?
Can I go real quick, because then I have to jump off soon.
Sure. Yeah.
I think one of the biggest issues is when people, and for speaking specifically about the youth, don't see themselves as worthy. They don't see themselves and their brothers and sisters as people that should be cherished. And I feel like one of the ways to counteract that is it's something that ECBACC does and Yumy does, where he has, and I don't know, Yumy, if you have a specific name for the program, but he has a comic book course that he does, and he goes into different schools, different facilities, and they had him and Brother Akenshi have a character development course. And something that I do as well, I also teach a comic book class and a character design workshop. And I don't want to speak for Brother Yumy on this, but I know I have taught with them a few times, and basically is about giving youth the tools needed to craft stories and to develop characters that reflect them, reflect the community, reflect the culture. And I know personally, I've seen some of the characters that these kids create are mind-boggling, amazing. And it's a beautiful thing to see, because despite the fact that comic books are making billions of dollars a year in the movies and stuff like that, I still don't feel it gets the respect it deserves from an academic standpoint. And I feel like what Brother Yumy is doing and Brother Kenshie is doing is critical and necessary to allow schools to see the legitimacy of superheroes and imagination and comic book creation. And it's important for the children so that they can see, hey, you know what? I have an outlet to create. I have this outlet to be a nerd, to be or blurred, or like Maurice was saying. It used to be a case where you couldn't dare call yourself a nerd. What? That's a guaranteed beating. And now you have people that aren't really even in the culture, in the comic book culture. They're like, oh yeah, I'm a blurred, I'm a nerd, yeah, da. And they're like movie nerds. I don't want to get into a whole gatekeeper thing, but I do feel that it is cool to see that kids have this outlet, and that we can actually have them feel proud of themselves and feel proud of that they have another way to create, and it doesn't have to be or to have fun. It doesn't have to be basketball and or football. It can be for that kid that wants to draw. And I think what happens is, hopefully, because like you said, Eric, there's so many social economical factors. But I feel like if we can encourage kids to get back to creating, get back to seeing value in themselves and each other, and have that somehow, I don't know, by a process of osmosis, just spread out into the community, that people can see new opportunities to do something else, to be a better version of themselves. I really think that could go far. So hopefully people can network with Brother Yumy more, bring this program to more facilities, to more schools. Like, I would love it where ECBACC has a fleet of teachers, or like that we can spread this out to other schools and have like, or even like a curriculum, like a comic book course in different schools. I'm just throwing stuff out there, Brother Yumy. You could write this down if you want. It's up to you. No problem.
You writing them down, Yumy? Taking these notes.
That stuff is already in place.
Already here.
It's already in place.
That's what I'm talking about. We need this in school, and what I mean. I really
we just need some funding.
That's
It's
the thing.
funding, because part of what we said was we don't want to keep asking professionals to volunteer.
Yeah.
We do our work, so we give us, and Brother Nixon already knows, we give a stipend, but the stipend is not what you're worth. The stipend's for lunch.
Yeah.
We want to be able to actually pay artists who are professionals, the writers, Kaloni, professional, Sister Ariell, Brother Maurice, professionals. So our little stipends, we thank you, but you deserve more than a stipend.
Well, listen, I'll be honest with you. Brother Yumy has called me to do certain things, and I usually almost always say yes. And then he'll be like, hey, Shawn, and we're paying you. I'm like, what? Oh, even better. Thank you, Yumy. But what he does is that he provides these opportunities for people, and it's really a beautiful thing to see. And I feel like once more people get their kids involved, or they become involved, like that, it may sound cheesy, but I think it will go a long way towards spreading love and spreading some kind of community awareness. And like, yo, hey, you know what? I'm not gonna try to have conflict with this person. Let's save it for the comic books. Let's talk about who would win, Darth Vader or Hulk, versus more so, sorry, I should have named some Black characters. I let you down, but I apologize. You know what I mean? But
Luke Cage versus Black Panther, but we're pretty
Luke
sure.
Cage versus Black Panther. There we go.
But not even. Try again.
Oh, okay.
Try again.
Brother Man versus Purge.
Right.
Oh, indeed. I see what you did there. I see what you did there. I like it. I like it. But yeah, we can save it for that type of stuff instead of bringing the violence out onto these streets. And the beautiful thing about what ECBACC does too is an incubator. There's the business aspect of it, because the Yumy encourages people to say, hey, yo, it doesn't just stop here. What if you were to create a comic book and then boom, you can be a future guest at ECBACC. And there was one more component to it too that I was thinking about, the business aspect, the fun side. It escapes me for a second, but there was something else that ECBACC provides that was like, this is perfect. This is everything you need here. It'll come back to me. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to talk so much. The love, yes, that's part of it. I think like that's one of those intangibles, like that's one of the things that comes about just naturally, organically.
Okay, you're talking about tangible things. Okay.
Yeah, I think it was on tip of my tongue because got it. Oh man, the old brain. And this is from seeing Brother Yumy in action. He talks about the history of comic books too.
Yeah. And
the place that we as Black people, as New Media people, have in comics. And I think the historical aspect is so important too. And once again, I think that's key into the community learning to heal. If we see value in ourselves, if we can see a place for ourselves, I think that will go so far in us not wanting to harm the other person. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't want to inflict violence on some person that I cherish, some person that I see value in. But you know what I mean? That's just me, and hopefully that doctrine can spread.
Hey, better. I don't have any words. Are we done? Shawn, thank you so much. You said you had to run. If you have to run, you can share where people can find you and follow your work.
Yeah,
other than through ECBACC.
Thank you so much. I would love to be part of this because just to listen to this knowledge is amazing. Shout out to everybody on the panel. Thank you to Brother Yumy once again. Eric, amazing job that you're doing. You can find me, Shawn Alleyne, at Pyroglyphics 1 on Instagram. That's PYROGLYPHICS1 Instagram. Shawn Alleyne on Facebook. Website coming soon. Apparently I keep getting hacked or something, but pyroglyphicstudios.com. And yeah, I'll see you at another ECBACC event soon. The last one we had was amazing. Shout out to the whole ECBACC staff. It was like a outdoors picnic type of feel.
Yeah,
I was feeling it. I was loving it. I was
family reunion picnic outside, breathing the air.
Yeah, man. It was beautiful. You know what I mean? I almost took my shoes off, was just walking on barefoot just to connect with the soil.
Come on, put shoes back on.
I just felt so good to be connected to everybody again. So yeah, that's where you can find me. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of this. Enjoy the rest of the show, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Shawn.
Yeah, thank you.
One thing I wanted to touch on it because Shawn brought it to my attention is that Brother Yumy also, to touch back on my history with it, allowed me to expand on my interviewing prowess, because at the ECBACC, and I think that's in 2015, it was 2015, 2016, 2017, one of the times when the lounge started, is that Brother Yumy allowed me to not only go around and interview people for segments for the show, whom I've then created connections with and follow on Instagram and Twitter and all that kind of stuff. He even also allowed me time and made space for me to interview Don McGregor, one of the initial creators of Black Panther. And I like the fact that he took the time to say, I will create this space for you, where I just said, hey, I want to do this. And Yumy said, okay. And that's part of the initial question I asked about creating the space for people to feel important enough that you could talk to people that you didn't think you'd ever be able to talk to on the side, and get a one-on-one with Don McGregor, and just little old me with the microphone in my phone. I have better stuff now, but the point is that it has begun this career that I'm trying to find for myself in interviewing and speaking my truth and getting those perspectives out there is one of the many aspects of finding that voice for people to then create and channel that that whatever they're feeling. I can't speak for what everybody's feeling, because people might feel that way, just might feel lost, but it's one way to express yourself to then create a better world for the one that we're trying to live in. But I'll still pose that question to Professor. You about to just get at it. Go ahead.
You just sparked something in me, my brother. The same thing that I tried to give to my students for years, and I see ECBACC trying to get to everybody. The lesson that some people never think about until somebody mentions it, and we always do. Where you start has nothing to do with where you will end up. Everybody starts off humble and small, and where they go is the size of the earth and maybe even beyond that. That's what ECBACC has done for me. And I watch my students, and they think, oh, this is going to be a boring ass class. What the hell are we going to be doing? I said, you never know. The only thing you know is you're not going to get out of here without my permission. So I'm working for you. I'm not working against you. Everybody in here, raise your hand if you had a teacher who you hated. Almost every hand goes up. I said, I will never be that teacher because I'm behind you 100%. Where are you? You're in college. How many of you are the first in your family to go? Hands still go up. I said, I come from that circumstance. What would be the strongest thing I had to put me to promote you? Other than that, we're going in the same way. I have a student who started in community college, went on to get a PhD in environmental science. She's been going places around the world. I use her example for my students. She's always surprised to hear it. I see tears in her eyes because she didn't think she was going to stay in college. You know, she wound up, the last assignment she had was on a Native American reservation. And she was like, she was a part of that community. So don't let somebody tell you what you can't be, what you won't do. You know, that's that old curse my sisters used to put on me when I was a kid. The 3-part curse, y'all know it. You ain't nothing. You ain't never been nothing. And what's the last one?
You ain't never
gonna be nothing.
nothing.
I'm saying, as long as you let somebody tell you, because I used to call that the 3 witches curses, because there's no hiding from that. I said, but beyond that, you have unlimited possibilities. ECBACC, we saw it in each other, so we became a family that, you know, to push it out on others. And we will always do that. And there will always be somebody who listens to us. But the folks that, because I've been hearing the news about Philadelphia and it's breaking my heart per usual. I said, I wonder if it's because they never heard the lesson of you can be better than this. Who knows? But I'm going to, we keep trying because it's important that we do. That's why we are here now.
Absolutely.
And hey guys, I don't know how much I missed, and hopefully I'm not repeating anything. But you know, the phenomenon that I noticed at ECBACC, and I always go back to me as a kid and trying to satisfy that need, is that in ECBACC, it's a safe environment and it gives permission to be who you are or who you want to be, or try to find out who you are. Yeah. And I think a lot of kids today are bombarded with information that they don't know how to interpret, and they're being told that they have to be a certain way. And I really think we can't speak at the kids. We have to kind of say, hey, here's what's out here, create spaces like Amalgam, like ECBACC, where they can come and just, hey, if I want to wear a cape and eat cookies, it's okay. You know, if I don't, you know, maybe I just want to stand in the corner and draw everybody I see. It's okay.
Yeah, and you'll probably get a compliment for your cape. Like, I like that cape.
Right,
Did you make
exactly.
That?
Right. You may find other people that like that too.
I'll clown you for the cape because I'll ask you, not necessarily because of, you know, the whole thing with like when people want to clown you. I'll be like, capes are inefficient unless you're Batman. You know, unless you're utilizing it. I'm a hero with no cape, but you're definitely like kudos to people that wear the cape, being their authentic self. You were saying, Brother Maurice.
Right, yeah. Or you could be Icon or Spawn. They, you know, their capes are good too. So
useful, but you know, right. That.
Yeah, but you know, and like I said, as a kid in the 80s, you know, you really were suppressing. I was suppressing who I was. Okay. So when I went to a comic book store, I felt dirty, really. And I would leave and I would never open my comics until I got home. Because if people saw me with it, what are you doing with that? Oh, you dummy, da 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 da. And so, you know, I'm in Germantown. I had to act like, you know, the stereotypical of what a Germantown kid was and is, right? You know, I got a box haircut, not necessarily because I liked it, but because that was what was going on. You know, you want to fit in. You don't want to stand out because you don't have the permission to do that. Our kids don't have the permission to be themselves. What they have the permission to do is to be like everybody else in what they're seeing and out there. But when they come to ECBACC and they see, wait a minute, there's grown Black folks drawing this. There's people dressed up like Wonder Woman and this and that. their eyes open up, their minds open up, and then they start talking. And thank God that at ECBACC, the adults and the people that are in the industry will sit there and listen to them, talk to them, and encourage them. There have been kids who, you know, maybe the artwork isn't that great, but I'll never say that to them. I'll talk to them and say, yeah, this is good. If you work, you can work on this, work on that, and it'll get better. Keep drawing, keep encouraging. And I can say, you know, the end result is I know people now that are out there doing things. There were kids that were coming back every year from ECBACC, and they started as fans. They worked on their artwork. They got tables. They're doing major stuff. There's all these other careers that they could be doing within the comic book industry. You know, you don't have to necessarily draw. I don't draw. You're right. My thing is I'm a communicator, right? So I took a step back and said, what can I do with my skill set to help? And that was to amplify what was going on. That was my gift to this. They got these great artists, but these artists don't necessarily know how to market themselves, right? So let me create something on the web called blacksci-fi.com that once again puts them front and center, and we interview them. You know, they're one of the major comic book magazines, mainstream ones, had called a guy named Dwayne McDuffie, for those people who don't know him, one of the founders of Milestone and has been forever in comics. They called him an overnight success. And I was like, that's an insult. That's an insult. This guy's like the Michael Jordan of Black comic books, or comic books, period. And he should be treated that way. So we made sure we did that. So then you can look at that and see, whereas when I was a kid, I knew the name McDuffie, but I didn't know it was a Black dude.
Yeah.
You know, I knew who Dennis Cowan was, but I didn't know until I met him they was Black, or Ron Wilson, or any of these people. You don't know. You see the end product, right? Jamal Igle is a young guy. He was one of the youngest at the time to ever work at Marvel and DC, right? Now we're talking about the 80s. This guy did a series called New Warriors, right? And in the New Warriors story, he did a storyline where the world flipped and became all Black, and the Avengers were all Black. And what was that like? It was a 2-issue series, right? And so, you know, just things like that in the 80s, that who knows what he had to go through to do that, right? So here you are, whether you're independent or in the mainstream, we need to say, yeah, brother, we got you. We support you. We appreciate that effort. And, you know, luckily something like ECBACC does it, and then the kids can see that direct result and say, wow, you know, going to Amalgam and seeing Ariell is the one in charge, that's mind-blowing for little boys and little girls. They need to see that stuff. They need to experience, and then know that they can be whoever they are. I think that really helps. You know, unfortunately, in our community, we always go straight to sports. Yeah. Or we go to rap, and there's nothing wrong with it, but there's so many other things that we can do.
Well, it's interesting you say that about, I don't know about sports yet. I think sports, but I'm thinking rap initially, that now there are nerdcore rappers, and there are rappers who rap about being a nerd and a blurred. And it started probably back with, I'll even reference like MF Doom, and in his initial crew. And I only found out about MF Doom in college. And just the artists that like Heroes for Hire, like in the area, the other people that are taking that craft and they're melding it together. They're finding an amalgam of those things that they love, putting them together.
Right.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, and just a little fact, you know, MF Doom was trying to come to ECBACC one year, and it just didn't work. It just didn't happen. It fell through. There's other entertainers that have been at ECBACC. You know, we had DJ Clark Kent came, and we talking about early days. We didn't even know he was going to come. He showed up. Freedom from CNC Music Factory, the rapper, he came through. You know, there's a lot of people who in other areas, in other respects, are into this. You know, but unfortunately, you know, at the time we weren't talking, and ECBACC really created that synergy among everybody to talk about it and expire and build each other up and move forward from there. So yeah.
Before we get off, thank you, my brother. Can I add one thing, just because it's timely? Please excuse me.
Yes.
Nichelle Nichols came to ECBACC.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes, she did. I saw that picture.
And she said, turn off the cameras. I got something to say to my people.
Yep.
Private session that only we heard, not recorded. I thought that was, now I've seen her at other conventions, but that one, I brought a friend with me she was her idol. And she said, can I go? I said, I think so. You know, and she was this close to Nichelle Nichols, and Nichelle Nichols complimented on her outfit. I don't think she ever forgot it.
Yeah, yeah.
But she's passed now. But ECBACC gave her the gift of her life.
Right. And I can
say that because I could see how affected she was by that. Thank you.
Yeah. No, and I witnessed to that because, you know, Yumy and I were responsible for bringing her there, and I got to spend a lot of personal time with her. And, you know, she was blown away by ECBACC, by the people there, you know, and a lot of people don't know, afterwards, we went to dinner with her, the board and some of the pioneers. And we spent the night with talking to her about comic books, about sci-fi, you know, telling us personal stories about, you know, the King story that some people may know, who told her to stay on Star Trek when she felt like she wasn't doing enough. She wanted to take to the street. She's going to quit the show and start marching with them. He said, no, stay on the show. And that personally is one of the things that, you know, it struck me when she passed, but I was happy to know that she knew that what we were doing was because of her. Yeah. And, you know, she saw the fruits of that, and she loved it. You know, she had our shirts, all the whole nine. And, you know, it's incredible. It's incredible what is done and what can be done. And I always say that it's something in us as a collective, you know, and maybe Yumy can get a little deeper in that. When we talk about like a Black Panther, you know, everybody, whether you're a comic book collector or not, one, you knew you had to go. Two, you knew you had to dress a certain way, right? You had to have your kente on or whatever, your mud cloth or whatever. We all knew that, right? Whether it was old people who never liked comic books or young people. And we knew that we had to go in groups and have that kind of experience. So, you know, deep down, you know, there's something in our soul that we tap into and can tap into to elevate us, to take us to another level. It's just the challenge is to find that, access it, cultivate it in our young folks.
Yeah. And I wanted to say, so for the hip hop piece, it's like, so yeah, the nerdcore movement, and I know some nerdcore artists, and it's so exciting to get those references because you feel like you're part of a secret club. It's like, oh my God, did you hear what they just said? Mm-hmm. But it's like, we also have to remember, like, even Wu-Tang. Yeah. Like Ghostface, the Iron Man, you know, they are all pointing to comics in their, you know, in their names and even sometimes in their lyrics. You know, Amalgam had the honor of hosting like legendary DMC, and he talks about how his interest in comics crafted how he built out his rhymes. I just like wanted to point out, like, yeah, the nerdcore, like these direct, like making references to like Akira in your raps, you know, that's happening. But even before that, nerddom and hip hop always kind of went hand in hand. And like, I feel like we were always interested in those spaces and imagining ourselves in those spaces, even then, you know, within the music.
Yeah. And you can even look at, you know, Neo had a comic book, Tyrese had a comic book.
The Weeknd had a comic book.
The Weeknd, yep. So they know.
Black Eyed Peas.
Yeah, Black Eyed Peas. And Cypress Hill has a comic book. Like it's a lot. Again, it's just a lot of overlap there. And then like also doubling back on something Maurice said, because you were talking about just kids and our community, you know, points to sports a lot and points to music, which is true. But I feel like sometimes those introverted kids, those kids that are in their head, that are, you know, building worlds and imagining things, they don't get that same outlet to express and to learn and to cultivate. And so I think it is important for those spaces. It's like, you know, creativity can be anything. You know what I mean? You could weave beautiful baskets, you can make tapestries, you can cook, you can bake. Like, again, it's not this, we don't have to just exist in one space. And I feel like for me growing up, I often felt like, you know, as a Black person, there were only certain spaces that we were allowed to exist in. And it's like, but I'm not good at that, or I don't like that, or that's not what I'm interested in. And so for us to kind of, you know, be open with our nerdiness, to let kids know that there's another avenue. And then the other piece of that is like, we live in such an instant gratification world. I think about like, my aunties and my grandmom and, telling you to slow down. And as a kid, you're like, I don't want to slow down, I want to go. But now as I'm getting older, I feel like so much of the violence and things that we see is like, as everybody's trying to live so fast, everybody wants to be rich now and they want what they want. And again, I think it breeds selfishness. You're only thinking about yourself. You're not thinking about how your actions affect other people. And it also makes you feel like if you want to be good at something, you have to be good at it today. But it's like artists, like they might have always had a natural talent, but if you see an artist that is like phenomenal and is like just blowing your mind, it's because they spent time, they worked on it. It took years to cultivate that. That didn't happen overnight. And I think it's so important to communicate that to our youth too. Like it takes time. Yeah. Like you're going to work and it's going to be hard, but what the difference is, but you still show up every day and you do the work. And then you start to see the improvement. I'll say this, I don't think anything good or anything worth it happens overnight. It's like anything that's going to blossom into something beautiful, you have to cultivate it. And I think it's so important for us to drive that home for our kids. Like, be patient, work hard, like, and, work at your craft, work at the thing that you say is important to you. And don't just assume that because you wanted to do it tomorrow, you'll be TikTok famous. Like it doesn't, like that's, again, like I think that's my biggest concern for the youth. It's like, everything is so throwaway now because everything's about consume, and you never really appreciate even what you have. And so for us to like show them how to slow down and enjoy the journey, and that's worth something too,
One of the worst things that ever happens is when I'm a writer and I speak into groups, is the worst thing that we've ever had in our society as far as writing is concerned is a 30-second montage with somebody who has an idea for a book. You see a couple pictures of them writing and balling up something, throw it away. In the next scene, you see them $1 million, million issue. Like it happens that quickly. It never happens that quickly. It takes the time it takes. And if it doesn't happen like you think in your head it's going to happen because you want it badly enough to fight for it. But if you think somebody's going to give you, a award-winning book or manuscript, and what will that be worth? Because now you're just a fraud waiting to be discovered. Is that if you care about it, you will put everything you have into it. And that just applies for every art. I'm a martial artist. The worst, I'm sorry, it's not the writing montage, it's the martial arts montage. Somebody takes 2 lessons and suddenly they become a ghost face killer. No, that never happens. Don't let nobody lie to you like that, But you're right. We have to work them into the sense of the reality is, and all they do is ask us and we be straightforward with them. They may not like hearing it, but they hear it enough. Who knows? Yeah. I didn't mean to interrupt you, my sister. I was enjoying what you were saying.
No, I that was, again, just kind of things that Maurice said that I just, kind of struck a chord with me, and something I think like I've been, dealing with myself as I'm kind of in a new phase, right? And sometimes it can feel like failure. And I think I'm struggling with that a little bit too, because obviously closing is not what I wanted to do, but I'm a business person and I have to look at what it is and make a decision. And I feel good about the decision I've made, but I'm still processing it. I'm still working through it. And like our hashtag for our closing, at least in this iteration, is Amalgam Endgame. And I chose that obviously because it's like, oh, things are coming to an end game. But like thinking about just the film Endgame, Dr. Strange says we're in the end game now after he gives up the stone. It's like, so what does it look like right now? It looks like we lost. I gave up the stone and now what's going to happen is going to happen. We lost. But it's because Dr. Strange saw they had one chance and they had to lose today to get their chance tomorrow. Yeah. And so I think that's how I'm I want to carry this. It's like, I had to take the step back today. I had to take this loss today to hopefully build something that can endure tomorrow. And, you know, just kind of working on that and working on myself and thinking about what the next phase of Amalgam really looks like.
Evolution is something that people don't think about too often in their journeys. And one day you might be a writer for 10 years, and then you turn around and might be a director for 10 years. You know, you stop writing, whatever your next phase is. And this is for anybody watching or listening right now, whatever your next phase is whatever your next phase is. You don't have to stick into that one niche forever. You can always evolve. And even your current circumstances in per to the conversation we're having right now about the violence going on in Philly, it's like, that's not your permanent circumstance. You can change it. You can change it by changing something in your immediate world, and it will branch out and bloom over time. Kaloni, you could add to this conversation.
Yeah, I wanted to expound on something that Shawn said before he logged off, because I really agree with what he was saying. I mean, I agree with everybody was saying, but something Shawn said stuck with me, which was about the value thing, right? I think that's a very, 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 very important facet of this whole violence thing, and I think it's often overlooked. I spent a good portion of my life, not even on purpose, working with young people. Like, I just happened to end up working in youth programs over and over and over again. And one thing I've learned, and the programs that I've worked in have typically been like, you know, disenfranchised, under supported, you know, learning disability, young Black boys and girls. And after doing it for a long time, one thing that I learned was that these children were often put in these programs and labeled as like not as capable or as intelligent as other people, because of the way that they were performing in schools before they got to that program, right? And so on paper, it looks like, yeah, he or she is not as capable and or intelligent, you know, or as capable to navigate life, right? But the one thing that I learned, because I just told y'all earlier, I went to school for film. I didn't go to school for education, right? I didn't go to school for teaching, but I ended up teaching for a lot of years. And one thing that I always enjoyed about being in that position was taking the time and building with them on a personal level. And I found that a lot of those kids weren't actually mentally challenged or not, or intellectually challenged as they were labeled. The problem was they did not believe in themselves. They did not see value in themselves and in each other. And that mindset affects everything that you attempt to do in life, everything. If you approach the world with a mindset that you are not important, that your needs and concerns don't matter, that you're incapable or less capable than the next person, it will build a sense of lack of value in yourself, but it also will develop a certain amount of frustration that you will end up taking out on the world. And I believe that's a lot of where the violence comes from, right? And so it doesn't help that when those same children, and I'm talking about Black kids, when those same children turn to the television or turn on the radio or read any type of media, those forms of media reinforce that mindset that they're not important. Directly or indirectly, they reinforce those mindsets, right? And so it's one thing, like diversity is one thing, right? It's like, oh, I want to see somebody that looks like me on screen or in a book, right? But we also have to beware of how we depict that person that looks like us, right? If a young Black boy turns the TV on and every time he sees a male with his complexion on screen and he's scared and terrified, has no courage, and is dumb in comparison to everybody else in the film, he's gonna connect himself with that subconsciously. If and we also have to be careful about what we celebrate ourselves for in our community, right? So the hip hop thing came up. And we all know that hip hop has a certain level of violence and debauchery to it. And if we constantly celebrate ourselves for doing that, and then we overlook the things that we do that are more honorable, children find their value in the things that we celebrate them for. And if a young man turns to television or a book, whatever media it might be, radio, music, and he sees that the person that looks like him is being celebrated for doing a certain amount of certain things, he's going to go out and mimic that. So we have to diversify what we see, but we also have to make sure that what we see is being depicted the proper way. We can't possibly expect for the violence to change if we constantly celebrate it in our own community. So I think it's important that as storytellers, as writers, as artists, musicians, whatever your craft is, that we hold a certain level of responsibility to be like, you know, like even when great opportunities come down the pipe, right? We're like, oh man, I just got an opportunity to do X, Y, and Z. And as a Black person, they asked me to do that. It's actually going to do damage, but it's money in it, so I'm gonna do it. Right? Like we have to have enough balls to be like, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, it's the integrity.
Our community is suffering enough already. So I appreciate the opportunity, but if that's what I have to do for it, I'd rather not.
Yeah, and I think you have to be ready to walk away from, you know, money. And like, so when Amalgam first opened and it opened with all that fanfare, you know, TV, you know, execs are coming in, they want to, oh, can we make this a show? Can we make this a show? And there was a lot of like live action, like reality type stuff. And so, it's an opportunity. So sure, I'll hear you out. But just like you said, you know, I'm talking to these two white executives, and what they're asking me is like, oh, okay, so, you know, what's the drama here? You know, what's the, like that. And I'm just like, look, I'm not doing that. It's like, you know, you want me to be a caricature of what you think of when you think of a Black woman or a Black owned business or whatever. I'm not doing that. You know what I mean? And when I made that stand, all those calls stopped. Because again, it's like, you're not going to use me to make a mockery, because that's what you want, you know? And again, it's like, was there money lost? Absolutely. But it's an integrity thing. And I think, you know, as a community, you know, we are in a place where doing the right thing is going to cost you something, like financially, but that payback is so much more. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we bear a responsibility to protect each other, right? I'm not gonna put images out of Black men, you know, looking and being ridiculous as a storyteller. If somebody comes to me with a financial opportunity for it, but I know it's going to damage my community, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna create stories that make our women look, you know, insane, just, you know, for a couple of dollars. And it's a lot of, and I hate to say it, it's a lot of artists that look like us that will take those opportunities, and it does damage. I mean, it's called a spade a spade. There's a lot of people out there that don't think like that. And I think it's important that as artists, as storytellers, as creators, as you know, whatever you do, our community suffers for a lot of reasons, and it doesn't behoove us to like perpetuate it by playing the game. So
a lot of knowledge spread out here right now. Any final words before we?
Heavy. but that's what
No,
that's what's always on my heart.
yeah, it's always a ongoing conversation. The program that I produce, Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro, that's the one topic that we talk on, or that he talks on always, and brings guests on to talk about. It's still a thing, and I'm always thinking about in the background as a producer, but also as a Black man, what is that's going on in the background? What's it more than just talking about what's happening? What can be done to meet the root of the violence head on, or try to change it? It's not going to change tomorrow. Unfortunately for this video, hopefully it changes later on, but it's not going to change tomorrow. But it's something that you can start to root to make a change to meet the changes down the line. Like I say, you're not gonna, as Professor said, you're not gonna wake up one day, watch a karate video, and suddenly be better than, be the next Bruce Leroy out here. Like it all takes time. Go ahead, Brother Yumy.
Just a quick commentary on this whole piece about art in society.
Yes, sir.
So we've been joking about this being like the zombie apocalypse because there's so much stuff going on, but a lot of this is intentional. How does any people take away funding for art, funding for education, right? Funding for after-school programs, and expect things not to be like this, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of this is intentional. This is what's called this is the politicking piece of it,
Yeah.
which is why people often don't like politics. So we always say that any issue you have, whether it's violence, gun violence, whichever kind of violence, you have to define what the issue is. And in every single case, these people here in Philadelphia have never defined what they're talking about. In any case, they've never defined the actual topic. They talk around it. But those of us who do work in education, who do work with people, we're the ones who have to address the results of these people making decisions to defund things that actually work and just need some more support. So the art piece is literally one of the most critical pieces that's happening in the city, where you now have rampant drug addiction on the subways, you have homelessness, you have all these things that make it look like some dystopian universe that we're in daily. So, like towards Center City, they're building, like Octavia Butler had already predicted 20 years ago, these like insulated communities, just right in Center City, the mega cities, where they're building right on top of each other with people who don't even talk to each other. So they're building a space where the people who are being protected aren't even like they're human beings. They walk past each other. They'll be on an elevator and not talk to each other in the tiny box.
Yeah.
But they're being protected by a system that actually literally is making a space for them to exist. And the people who are not in that area are the ones who are like the zombies outside at the walls. And so those of us who have this kind of creative talent to link people, that's what we have to start to do. Of course, we need funding too. But most of us are still working with our own funding or fundless, but still doing work.
I'll pose this question because I believe that this movement of defunding the art programs or defunding after school programs came from a belief. This is before my journalistic research days in general, because I was probably one of the last classes of like recess and art programs and such like that. But where were the numbers where were the numbers coming from that these programs, I guess, weren't beneficial or weren't worth the financial backing for these programs to continue? Or was it just something that there were numbers coming from it, there were enough people produced from it, but they just did not feel like continuing to add funding to those ventures? Like which one was it? Was it the lack of numbers of presented artists and creatives out of it, or we see the numbers of artists and creatives, but funding is not going to go there, we want it to go somewhere else?
My brother, if I may. I just took this off my bookshelf.
Mm.
This is a book that came out in the 1950s by Frederick Wortham. And basically what he did, he was a psychiatrist. And he had a theory, not proven. And basically what he did was he got the conclusion first and then found the proof afterwards. He'd go to juvenile detention centers and ask the kids if they'd read comic books. Now they're obviously been branded as criminals. So he said, whenever they said yes, he made a note. So then he comes out with the statement that comic books lead to kids being criminal. That was the basis of this book, and people lost their minds because they were in the mindset to accept it. They weren't looking for facts; they were looking to be appeased. When everybody came back from the war and the kids had been left alone, and all of a sudden now juvenile delinquency was a major issue, like it wasn't before. I've read books from the early 1900s, and you don't want to know what it was like. Kids in beer gardens drinking on the street, laying out drug out. No one remembers that because that's not convenient. So it's not about facts. It's about, as you gentlemen have said, somebody had a conclusion and they look for the background afterwards. I keep this handy because it reminds me of how things go. One of the reasons that my mother destroyed one of my original comic book collections is because she was a victim of programming. Everybody told her that this is going to lead you. Don't let him read those books, no matter, you'll never know what he's reading in those. I read about justice and fairness. Those are the lessons I took, but not most of the lessons she heard back. Yeah. So I'm not mad at her. I'm mad at the system that put that in place.
I'll add this too, because the conversation about violence in video games definitely comes up too as well. And I'm a person that plays violent video games, and I didn't grow up on that. Definitely was, my mother adhered to the ESRB, but even playing that still didn't develop in my mindset. And I'm from a different community. I will say that for those that might be affected by that, so I can speak from that line of privilege. But I will say that the conduit of playing those violent video games, it roots from a different place, that these video games become a place that that person will live and then live out that violence. So it's not the game that suddenly I'm a put together person and playing this game suddenly, now I want to be this. Is like, no, there's more to it than that. But don't blame that. Is it what's around it? Are the parents just letting them play that game, not attending to any of their creativity? Are they pouring more of their mindset into this game than they need to, which is also talking about limiting people that you might need to limit how long you play that game, or understand that is a game, that is not real life. You don't have extra lives outside. It's not the same. Just adding that in there, but still pose the same question anybody else wants to weigh in on the idea of having the results of art versus believing that this funding isn't necessary for this area of creativity for us as a people.
When someone says that kids are violent, and I'm thinking about when I was a kid and I used to love Westerns, and Lord knows they were firing the gun every 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. And we talk about American history. They always want to talk about the great frontiermen and how they settled, the West by killing Indians and enslaving Black people, but no one mentions that part. Mm-hmm. Somehow we know where this came from. And I remember the summer, it must have been 2 or 3 summers in a row, when New York was experiencing some of the worst violence it ever had. So much so that other countries were not bringing their tourist groups here. That's when they got serious. Money was being affected now. And suddenly now they worked hard not to change the conditions, to change the reports. So I'm wondering what they're going to do now, where how often is it that somebody is going out somewhere with a gun and just killing people randomly, which has always gone on, but now it's getting a different kind of approach than it was in the past. It's not like out of nowhere, it's out of somewhere.
It's not out of nowhere, right? It didn't happen overnight.
And to be put on a certain population, we have a woman here running in Connecticut. I cannot believe this. I'm building the wall. I want an airplane. The wall don't mean nothing to me, but the idea is that somehow taking that sick, that sick philosophy, somebody who had it before, y'all know who I'm talking about, and promoting themselves as being a part of it. I'm like, I don't even know what to say to them. They were never going to build a wall as extensively. He said they were never going to be able to build a wall that extensively. It would make people feel good, but it would do nothing. And it'll only make it worse because now this wasn't effective. Now we have to increase the methods we're using. You can smell it. You can smell it coming. I'm still smelling it coming. I'm watching very carefully these midterm, I don't know what they call them midterm, they're all electing people. Elections coming up. Let's see what happens and let's see those of us who are keeping our eye on the ball and the people who try to keep you from looking at the ball. Because it's exactly, whenever I see, this is something that bothers me when I'm watching a crime program and I love them, the number of times that women are victims, the number of times that Black people are victims and or perpetrators. If I did a count, I'm afraid of what that count would be. But if I'm looking back from what I've just seen over the years, it's a message to everybody. What do you believe? That's the thing. It's not what the truth is. It's what do you believe? Or what can I convince you of?
That's what I'm talking about. That right there.
I'm sorry. I hope I didn't take the subject of our discussion sideways. I'm trying to, if I can help save some kids from that kind of nonsense, that's just like, come on, y'all. We got better stuff to do. We are reaching, when I speak to Black kids particularly, I said, you are the sons and daughters and grandsons and great-grandsons and daughters of kings and queens who established civilizations that are still around today. The principles are still around today. What do you want to be a part of? 5 seconds or 5 millennia? Your choice. And suddenly maybe they feel the weight of what they have to pick up.
Right.
And that's what I promote. I said, you didn't see me coming in here with a double bandolero and pistol sticking out. You came in, I had a piece of chalk in my hand. I was carrying a textbook. I had a smile on my face because I'm excited to be teaching you guys. I'm glad you're here. What were the weapons I brought to you? Knowledge. That wonderful thing you have at the top of your neck, that you refuse to use.
Now,
come on.
Now imagine a man like that being celebrated throughout media. Then the children would begin to mimic that. You see what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that will be a ripple effect throughout our community.
Whenever I see students that say they want to become teachers, and then in the face of all the stuff, okay, I'm going to make this politically incorrect, of all the stuff I've went through as a teacher that was outside of my teaching responsibilities. The people who are playing, it's a game I call Tiny Kingdom, where when you step in this office, I'm in charge. The system doesn't exist anymore. And I'm just saying, how could you think you could get away with that? Or why would you think that was, and that was in place until the day I retired by certain individuals. It just stunned me. But the pressure I didn't feel any longer when I stopped teaching. I still have students I talk to now, but it was a political system and what happened in the classroom. There were two different things and they had two different priorities. And I never forgot it. And some people get sucked into it. Oh, I don't want no trouble. I do. Raise my hand. West Philadelphia, looking for it. What you got to say for yourself? I wasn't raised by no people who were weak. I was raised by people who were strong. You can't put them, well, this one happened to you. Let's go to court. Back them down, Yeah. And I understand how it is when you first start out, you build in allies. But once you get to the point where you can't, it's so obvious you can't deny it, you have to make a change. And that's exactly what I had to do. I would rather educate my students than miseducate them.
Yeah. Yeah. We could be sitting here for hours and hours talking about the different things that have been trying to change over time, but I wanted to initially bring that conversation of violence from creator standpoints and what you guys' opinions of, and I appreciated everyone's opinion here about that conversation and what we can do. And it's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen the next day, but it's about people that have the right ideas to implement these ideas over time, and that's what matters. Yumy said we have questions that we also had to answer, or
you answered most of them. I think we covered Sister Ariell's amalgam piece that people want to know about. And Brother Maurice, did you mention Brother Henri? I'm having deja vu.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring out one of the people recently that passed was one of the earlier organizers and helped organize ECBACC, Henri Dozier. He died on August 2nd, and he was actually an educator and talked about a lot of the same things that Kaloni brought up. He was always working with young kids. He himself was a writer, and he had comic book characters that he was trying to do some things with. And maybe a couple months ago, I was talking with him about trying to do an ECBACC style convention in Virginia, where he was from Newark, and he really wanted to do something in Newark after he experienced ECBACC. Didn't have the opportunity to, and moved to Virginia and was trying to do something down there for the young kids down there. So, and he went by the name Galactic Rio. And, you know, as we talk about the 20-year anniversary, really can't talk about it without mentioning him. He was there when I was there, and like I was saying earlier, he was someone that would attend, and then we pulled him up on the stage to be a panelist as well, you know, and have all those discussions. You know, really was a cheerleader and someone to get people to come. And he was one of the first teachers of the kids workshops, and really passionate and took these things to heart. And just what Kaloni said, you know, really brought it back to me, because that is what Andre preached all the time and was about it. So I just wanted to take a minute to, you know, bring his name up, recognize him, you know, as he rests in power. And we talk about ECBACC and the things that we do in our community. So thank
Absolutely.
you.
Yeah,
Thank you for the acknowledgement. Rest in peace, brother.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for this forum.
Yeah, absolutely.
If we don't have any other notes to touch on, I believe that was definitely the main topic. And celebrating ECBACC again, congratulations on 21 years of officialness, 36 years of work, 21 years of logos and papers and presence, and 20 plus years more into the future. One other thing I think, go ahead, brother Yumy, go ahead.
Yeah. I do want to thank our board, our 4-member board, Brother Kinshay Brown, who is our VP, Stephanie Branford, who is our treasurer, and Shankar Davis, who is our secretary.
Absolutely. Shout out to them. To see them at the conventions doing their work and helping make it a great thing. And shout out to you all for continuing to keep that work going. To wrap up, we'll go around again and just have everybody talk about the work they're working on in the near future and where people can find you and follow you. So Kaloni, we'll start with you.
So yeah, you can follow me on my Instagram page at Kaloni Davis, Kaloni_Davis. You could follow Last Days the Saga and where I'm going to be at in the next Comic Cons if you just go to at Last Days the Saga on Instagram. And as far as what I'm working on in the future, I just finished a psychological thriller called The Evaluation that you brought up earlier. It's a short. It's available on Vimeo on demand. If you go to my personal page, you'll see a link to it to go and watch it. I'm currently working on a feature with a team. I can't say much about it, but we're in development. We're in development hell right now. So I definitely don't want to say too much about it, but if all goes well, look forward to another project coming soon.
Excellent.
Fantastic. Ariell?
So you can still find me on everything Amalgam. So Amalgam Philly, we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. We are going to be in operations through October 15th. So if folks are in Philly or near Philly or wanted to take a trip to kind of see, the first iteration, I'll say, of Amalgam and just kind of, take in the space, you have until October to do that. You can check us out at 2578 Frankfurt Avenue. That is in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. You can also check us out online at amalgamphilly.com. Our web store is also up and running if you want to support that way. We also have a GoFundMe that's still active. It's the GoFundMe that was that we opened when we reopened to the public in 2021. We did not reach the goal that we were hoping to reach. So that GoFundMe is still open for folks who want to donate as we kind of close our doors. We still have a couple months and there are still expenses associated with the few months left that we have in operation. So we still very much need folks' support so that we can finish well. And hopefully, finishing well will be the springboard for what comes next. Immediately for me, there's going to be a period of rest. Amalgam existed for almost 7 years, but it was much, much longer for me. I've been working at it, long before it had a physical form. And I've done it with very few vacations and time off, and more often than not neglecting like my personal needs. So I'm going to take some time and just kind of recoup and heal and regroup. And yeah, and I'm excited for, the possibilities. I'm kind of looking into different avenues of how to continue the spirit of amalgam, and understanding it might look different, but I'm still working on that. I also have some stories that are knocking around in my own head that I'm, kind of just taking notes as things come to my mind, but I would like to, pick one and finish it. So whether that's the kid's story or the horror story, because I'm a big horror fan, we'll see what happens. But I'm also excited about having time to be creative. Running a business is very much about the day-to-day, and I'm taking care of everybody else, making sure my customers are good and my team is good and the building's good. It doesn't leave a lot room to create, because you need energy for that. And so I'm excited to have some downtime to maybe kind of just think creatively for a little bit, and I guess enjoy my gifts for myself, dancing some more, baking, but just kind of doing things from a healing place and not an enterprising place, which has been, the last, decade of my life. So I'm excited for what's to come. Again, follow us at Amalgam Philly. Those pages will stay open through our closing. And anything that's happening with me or the team, or any new developments, will be posted there for folks to keep up with us. And I just want to thank you. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank Brother Yumy and everybody on this panel. Shawn, Maurice, Shawn, who had to leave, and Maurice and Kaloni. I feel like most, if not everybody, Amalgam has worked with in some way, shape, or form. Wakande, Vibranium Nights. Maybe we might have to reboot that one for the next film coming. I don't know, but just thank you all for your partnership, for your friendship, for just mentorship, and again, being able to sit on panels like this. I'm learning and absorbing and taking in all the wisdom that's being presented here. And I just want to thank everybody who supported Amalgam. It's like we had a 7-year run, and it took a 2.5-year pandemic to halt the train. And so I'm proud of that. We were small but mighty. We did a lot of awesome things in our short time. I think everything Amalgam has made the ancestors proud. And I am proud and honored to have been able to be the captain of the ship. And again, just looking forward to what's next, and just thank you to all of you.
Time for you is important, and we appreciate the work that you did to bring Amalgam to light. It's very important. And take that time for you to then channel it into your next chapter. And pretty sure I'm speaking for everybody here, but we'll appreciate that, whatever next chapter is, and supporting and bringing voices to our community and to your dreams is what's important here.
Thank you.
Yeah. Professor, where can people find and follow at?
Oh, y'all put me to shame now. I ain't got nothing to say. I'm kidding. I working on a book I've been working on for more years than I want to admit to, and it's going to be completed within 3 weeks.
Excellent.
Nice.
It's about my ABC experience going from Philadelphia to Amherst, Massachusetts, going to high school, then going from there to college, and what that took. It was a program called the ABC program. It's still in place, God bless it. But it was 1968, I left Philadelphia to go to that program. And I'm a saver. I kept notes on everything. I wrote poetry then, I've saved them all. I've saved letters my family sent me. This has turned out to be a hell of a document. It took me so long because every time you think about it, you change what you think because time passes. Yeah. But the core stuff has stayed the same. I'm very excited about where it's going. My family decides how they keep asking me, "Will you finish that book?" When I get ready, your business. So, but I got to tell you, that push helped me to get to the point where I am now. This is coming, and you all, this is family. This is the same thing Yumy used to say to us. You getting a copy because you're my family. And that's not even a question. Yes? Okay. That's the love that the program we put in place at ECBACC came to me. Because I go by and brothers will say, listen, he's like this. I say, yeah, man, I love that. And we trade something back and forth because we never wanted to have them. We know people come up to them all the time. And I'm sure for you, my sister, like you owe them something. What did that come from? No, we are a family. We owe each other, always. The words of my family was, if I got $10, you got $10. Not even a question. Well, I won't be able to pay you back. Look at my face. Did I ask you about paying it back? Either you feel it or you don't. I can't make it to you. Don't worry about it. I'm not going to chase you down for that. You got enough people doing that. Speaking truth to truth. I have a book I'm kind of hoping to come afterwards. It's called I Can't Retire Yet. My Students Haven't Taught Me Everything.
Mm.
And I saved all those anecdotes and I saved all the cards they sent me. That's what being a saver is. You get lucky before the long run. All I'm doing is just transposing the way it's going to show up. That's all I'm going to talk about now, brother, because we will be talking again, I feel. And thank you for this opportunity. Thank you to my family here.
Looking forward to those works. Get them done, brother. Get them done. Get them done.
The pressure never ends.
But do it in your time, but also pressure, get it done. Brother Maurice?
Once again, I'm just getting emotional, and just, I haven't been active for a little while myself because I need to take a step back and a breather. And, this really has been the first interview I've done or anything public in a long time.
Wow.
And, to hear Ariell, look, there's nothing short to say, but I love you. And, I'm proud of you and all the things you do and will do. I know that this is not an ending.
No.
I see it that way. And, I have to thank ECBACC that built relationships that I may not have had, that I was able to reach out to people and learn from them, and they learned from me. And, the young people that I've helped and hopefully inspired, or they've inspired me, then that's what it's all about for me. One of the things that we're doing right now is working on a documentary about ECBACC and about the 20 years and how it impacted Philadelphia, because I think that the story has to be told and has to be told by us.
Yeah.
Right now, with the mainstream superheroes out there, there's almost kind of a rewrite of, what Black superheroes are and what Black comic books are and the people involved in it. And, we need to go to the first sources to get an accurate documentation. And when it's done and it's out there and it's in the world. We're at a point of trying to do some additional fundraising. There is a trailer right now that we're using to try to move it around. But I think that, that's personal for me to do that and to leave a legacy. ECBACC is an entity to me. And I'm not greater than it. Anybody here is not greater than it. It's a bigger picture that, when we talk about business and we talk about having a share in the market and having something right now that when I was a kid wasn't there. Right now, any person can create a comic book, learn how to create a comic book. They can get it on a bookshelf somewhere, and they can get it in a convention where we access our people directly. Okay, may not be a perfect system, may not be the best system, but it's there. I can literally take that comic book and I can tour up and down and across the country in other conventions that have been inspired by ECBACC, which means that it's an entity and this is never going to go away. It will be here in some form, in some fashion. And for that, I'm happy about that. I'm happy to see the different versions and iterations. So it's time to document what was before and pass it on to the next generation. BlackSci-Fi.com is the website in our online news magazine, where we do as much as we can to interview and shed light onto what's going on in this Black sci-fi Afrofuturism community, whatever you want to call it, blurred community. We also have a television show that runs on Philly Cam on Comcast called Black Sci-Fi TV. So if you go to the website or go to our Instagram page, it'll take you to the other things. Our Instagram is at Black Sci-Fi. And so thank you, Eric, for having us on and giving us the time that it really deserves to talk about some of these things, not just kind of superficially go into this, but to really give a deeper dive that I hope your audience appreciates and seeks out. You know, if you never heard of Ariell, still look her up, still support the things that she's got going on, and ECBACC and Professor Foster and, you know, Kaloni, all of this stuff, it's still going on. It's not going away. It's about the coverage, like we said, you know, and the agendas. You know, if you have the big bucks, and, you know, Disney doesn't just own characters, they own the news stations that report on this stuff too. So they are their own media, and they are the giants. That's who we're competing against. So, no, you're not always going to hear this stuff. You have to seek some of it out on your own as well. So again, thank you, and, you know, stay strong.
We keep telling our stories. Last but not least, president and founder of ECBACC, and the reason for this reflection of the 20 years, Brother Yumy.
I'll just share our website, www.ecbacc.com, ecbacc.com. We're all over Facebook. I believe we have Instagram. I'm just not on it. But I think there is an account.
You do.
We do? Okay.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you all. Thank you all so much. There's so much I could say, but I always feel emotional. I'd rather be the one who's listening, because I already saw this from years ago, and there's still a ways to go. I'm gonna stop right there.